If you find yourself stranded in a desert, your biology goes into just an immediate cascading
Oh,
crisis.
yeah, a complete system shock.
Right. Because dehydration doesn't just dry out your mouth, it actually thickens your blood, it impairs your cellular function, and critically, it starves your brain.
Hmm.
But the most dangerous thing you can encounter in that state isn't a scorpion or a snake.
No.
A snake is just a physical obstacle.
Yeah.
You conserve your energy, you walk around it.
Right, you can manage that.
Yeah. The real danger, the lethal threat, is a mirage.
Wow, yeah,
Because a mirage weaponizes your own desperation against you.
it really does.
It takes the predictive machinery of your visual cortex, which, is desperately searching for water, and it overlays a hallucination onto the hot sand.
Mhm.
It makes you run. It makes you spend your absolute final critical reserves of metabolic energy just sprinting toward a relief that does not exist.
It's a complete hijacking of your survival drive. I mean, the mirage offers this illusion of salvation, but the physiological reality is that the pursuit of it actually accelerates your death.
Man.
You burn glucose, you sweat what little moisture you have left, and you arrive at a patch of dry dirt, infinitely more depleted than if you just sat under the shade of a rock and, conserved your energy.
So you arrive worse off than when you started sprinting.
Exactly.
And this brutal mechanism, this biological tragedy of exhausting yourself for an illusion, is the perfect entry point for what we are unpacking today.
It really sets the stage.
It does. We have our hands on this fascinating contemporary commentary dated August 27th, 2026, and it looks at the Bhagavad Gita, specifically a few lines from chapter 7.
Right.
But, as always, this is not a history lesson. Okay, let's unpack this. This commentary operates like a diagnostic manual for modern psychological exhaustion.
Yeah, it really takes these ancient Sanskrit concepts and maps them aggressively onto the sheer fatigue of our current digital, hyper-competitive lives.
Yes, exactly.
The central thesis is that most of us are sprinting toward mirages, and then we're wondering why we feel so incredibly depleted.
Right. And I love that the author of this commentary manages to bridge a massive gap here. We are looking at, ancient metaphysical philosophy on one side and the harsh realities of contemporary behavioral neuroscience on the other.
And the alignment is striking. I mean, the text isn't dealing in abstract mysticism. It's addressing the raw mechanics of human motivation, attention, and the neurochemical traps we fall into every single day.
So let's get right into the mechanics of that trap. Because the text opens its argument by diagnosing the baseline condition of modern success. And the diagnosis is pretty blunt. It talks about the fruits we spend our lives chasing, the promotions, the social capital, the financial milestones. And the Sanskrit phrase used is antavat tufela. The commentary translates this simply as finite and perishable fruit.
Right. It's looking at the fundamental nature of the rewards we are biologically driven to pursue. And if we look at this through the lens of modern neuroscience, we're really talking about the dopamine system.
Ah, okay.
We all know the classic hedonic treadmill, the way we quickly adapt to new levels of success or pleasure. But the underlying neurology of that treadmill is what the text is really zeroing in on here.
Interesting.
Because dopamine is not a molecule of long-term satisfaction.
Right.
It's the neurotransmitter of anticipation, of seeking, and reward prediction error. So when you achieve that finite fruit, you get the promotion or you see a massive spike in your social media metrics, you get a localized dopamine release.
And it feels like relief.
Yeah.
It feels like you finally quenched the thirst.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the architecture of the brain requires that spike to dissipate.
Wait, really?
Oh, yeah. If the dopamine stayed elevated, you would never seek another goal. You'd literally sit on the couch and starve to death because you'd feel perfectly satisfied.
Wow. So the drop is biologically mandatory.
It's mandatory. The dopamine clears out of the synapses, and it doesn't just return you to your previous baseline.
Oh, it often drops you below baseline.
No way.
Yeah. You enter a localized deficit state. The commentary refers to this as the baseline mind being left in a state of lacking.
Okay, that makes sense.
So the thrill is gone, the physiological reward is over, and your nervous system immediately demands the next spike to alleviate the new deficit.
It's the saltwater analogy.
Exactly.
You drink the salt water, and the temperature of the water on your throat tricks your brain into thinking it's hydrated for about 2 seconds.
Yep.
But the salinity of the water pulls moisture out of your cells.
So true.
So the act of drinking it inherently manufactures a deeper thirst.
The relief is the poison.
Wow.
The pursuit of these finite, perishable fruits mathematically guarantees future dissatisfaction because the reward just cannot be sustained.
Okay, I follow the biology there, but I have to push back a little on how aggressively the text frames this.
Okay, go for it.
Because the commentary points to the ancient text calling the people who live this way alpa midasam, which translates to those of small intellect.
Right. And that just feels remarkably elitist. I mean, are we really saying that a single mother wanting a promotion to provide for her kids or, someone feeling a burst of joy because they finally bought a house is lacking intelligence?
Yeah.
It feels like we are punishing basic human nature.
I get that. And that friction you're feeling is entirely justified if we read intellect as, like, raw IQ or a measure of moral worth.
Yeah, that's how it sounds.
But the commentary does a lot of work to strip away that elitist interpretation.
Okay.
It defines this small intellect strictly as cognitive short-sightedness. It's an error in calculation, not a flaw in character.
Cognitive short-sightedness. So it's about the horizon line of our decision-making.
Exactly. Let's frame it as an energy allocation problem.
Right.
You possess a strictly finite amount of life force.
Yeah.
Your daily metabolic energy, your waking hours, your cognitive bandwidth.
Right.
The commentary argues that investing 100% of your cognitive portfolio into assets that are mathematically guaranteed by the laws of physics and biology to depreciate to zero the perishable fruits is just a flawed investment strategy.
That makes a lot of sense.
It's short-sighted. It's not that wanting a house or a promotion is evil.
No.
It's that anchoring your entire psychological stability to things that will eventually decay or fluctuate or lose their neurochemical potency, that's a failure to calculate long-term risk.
It's an ROI issue, return on investment.
Exactly.
Because if an aggressive wealth manager told you to put your entire retirement fund into a company that had a legally binding mandate to go bankrupt in 5 years,
You'd fire them.
you'd fire them on the spot. You'd call them short-sighted.
Right.
But we routinely invest all of our emotional capital into whether a client emails us back or whether our physical appearance is holding up as we age.
We do.
We're pouring capital into depreciating assets.
We really are. And the text doesn't stop at diagnosing the bad investment. It goes deeper into the psychological mechanism that forces us to keep making that bad investment.
Okay.
It introduces what the commentator calls the law of attention alignment.
Oh, right. This comes from the phrase Devan Devayahuyanti. Worshippers of the secondary gods go to the transient realms.
Right. And what's fascinating here is that the word worship carries so much heavy, archaic baggage.
Yeah, you picture altars, incense rituals.
Exactly. But the commentary strips all of that away and redefines worship purely in terms of cognitive science.
Really?
Yeah. Worship is just sustained attention.
Wow.
Whatever you repeatedly fixate your attention upon is what you are worshiping. And the neurological rule here is Hebbian plasticity. Neurons that fire together wire together.
I've heard that.
Your brain literally shapes its neural pathways around the objects of your sustained attention. You become what you worship.
So the secondary gods aren't mythological figures.
No.
They are the external proxies we obsess over.
Yes.
The bank account balance, the engagement analytics on a post, the reflection in the mirror.
Those are the modern pantheon.
Wow.
And when you wake up and the very first thing you do is check a fluctuating metric, you are engaging in a daily ritual of attention alignment. You are tethering your nervous system to a volatile external proxy.
Which leads to the most brutal irony in the entire text.
Oh, yeah.
It essentially says, fine, if you worship these transient metrics, you might actually get them.
Right.
The universe might grant you the wealth or the status or the physical aesthetic you are desperately seeking, but your ultimate reward is that you are now permanently trapped in the fragility of those things.
You inherit the structural integrity of the object you focus on.
That is so wild.
Let's look at the mechanics of that anxiety. If you have aligned your entire identity and attention with financial wealth, your psychological baseline is now coupled to the global economy. So if the market dips, your nervous system experiences a literal survival threat. Your amygdala fires as if you were being chased by a predator, simply because a number on a screen went down.
It's completely hijacked.
And if you worship external beauty, the mere biological reality of cellular aging becomes this agonizing, decades-long crisis of faith.
Wow.
Because these metrics are perishable, they must fluctuate. Therefore, your peace of mind is condemned to fluctuate with them.
The anxiety isn't byproduct. The anxiety is the guaranteed return on the investment.
Exactly.
That is a heavy realization. I mean, if you are listening to this and you can recall the last time your chest tightened with genuine panic, Was it a physical threat? Or was it because your attention was anchored to a modern god that suddenly threatened to fluctuate?
Like a boss's move.
Or a social dynamic, yeah. It reframes anxiety from being a personal failing to being a highly predictable mathematical outcome of where we aim our attention.
It's the natural consequence of dwelling in the transient realms.
Yeah.
But the text doesn't just leave us in this state of neurological despair.
Thank goodness.
Having deconstructed the trap of the finite, it pivots to the alternative, the infinite return.
Okay.
The text states, Mad bhakta yanti mamapi, my devotees come to me.
And again, the commentary refuses to let this sit as a religious platitude.
Right.
It doesn't interpret me as some anthropomorphic deity sitting on a cloud keeping a ledger of good behavior.
No, not at all.
It defines this target of devotion as the ground of being.
The ground of being. The text uses terms like universal consciousness, absolute truth, and equanimity.
Okay.
The central argument is about shifting the anchor of your attention. If the modern tragedy is anchoring your attention to the waves on the surface of the ocean, the chaotic, fluctuating, perishable metrics,
Yeah.
the solution is to anchor your attention to the ocean floor. The water down there doesn't care if there's a hurricane on the surface.
So the contrast and the ROI is absolute.
Total contrast.
If you invest your life force in the perishable, you get guaranteed anxiety because all perishable things decay. But if you invest your attention in the ground of being, in equanimity, the text claims the return is permanent inner peace and freedom from existential lack.
Right.
You stop experiencing the deficit state because your baseline is no longer contingent on external dopamine triggers.
You step off the treadmill.
Yeah.
You completely decouple your nervous system from the volatility of external proxies.
Okay, I'm going to play devil's advocate here.
You do it.
Because if the math is that obvious, if investing in the ground of being yields infinite stability and investing in status yields guaranteed panic, why is this so hard?
That's the question, isn't it?
Why isn't everyone just walking around in a state of blissful equanimity? I mean, our brains are supposed to be optimization machines.
Yeah.
If there is a better path, why do we constantly default back to the treadmill?
And the commentary anticipates this exact objection.
Oh, it does.
It points to a cognitive glitch in human biology.
A glitch.
Yeah, a fundamental limitation in how our brains process reality. It uses the next section of the source text to explain why we constantly sabotage our own attempts at finding this infinite return.
Which brings us to the concept of the unmanifest and how badly we misunderstand it.
Exactly.
The text says, Avyakta vyaktim apanim manyantem abhutaya. The unintelligent think that the unmanifest has assumed a finite human form.
And the commentator labels this cognitive error anthropomorphic reductionism.
Yes.
And it is arguably the most fascinating psychological insight in the entire piece.
Okay, let's break down anthropomorphic reductionism.
Let's do it.
Because this isn't just about religion or spirituality. This is a fundamental processing error we make in politics and economics and everything.
Oh, totally.
We have this desperate psychological need to take massively complex, infinite or formless systems and compress them down into finite human-sized boxes.
Right.
Here's where it gets really interesting. It's like trying to run the computing power of a modern AI supercluster through a vintage 1980s floppy disk.
That is the perfect way to put it.
Yeah.
Because that compression algorithm is actually an evolutionary survival mechanism.
Really?
Yeah, the primate brain evolved to interact with distinct physical objects. Edges, boundaries, faces, predators, tools.
Okay, that makes sense.
The visual cortex and the conceptual frameworks of our brains are computationally optimized for the finite.
Right.
So when we are confronted with something formless, boundless, or infinite, like the ground of being or universal consciousness, the cognitive load is just too high.
It's overwhelming.
It triggers a kind of existential vertigo. So the brain runs a heuristic. It shrinks the infinite field down into something it can hold. A historical figure, a localized physical idol, a highly specific dogma. We create the floppy disk because a floppy disk can be placed on a desk. It has a shape.
We take the formless ocean and we pour it into a very specific cup.
Exactly.
Then we say, this cup is the ocean.
But consider the catastrophic side effect of that compression. This raises an important question. When we take the infinite unmanifest reality and reduce it to a finite, human-like form or a rigid, localized object, what have we just done?
We've given it edges.
Yes.
We've made it perishable.
We put ourselves right back into the trap of the finite.
We've just accidentally built a new hedonic treadmill.
Exactly. If your concept of ultimate truth is compressed into a finite historical narrative or a localized physical proxy, that proxy is now subject to the laws of the finite.
Right.
It can be debated, it can be physically destroyed, it can be disproved, it can decay. It becomes fragile.
Yeah.
And because you are worshiping a fragile proxy,
Mm-hmm.
you inherit its fragility. You have to spend your life force defending it. You experience anxiety when it is questioned.
Wow.
You have traded the anxiety of the stock market for the anxiety of dogma, but the neurological signature of the anxiety is identical.
That is incredible. Our own biological need for cognitive simplicity tricks us into recreating the exact psychological prison we were trying to escape. We think we are seeking the infinite, but our brains subtly swap it out for a shiny new finite object.
Yep.
So how do we hack the glitch? I mean, if our brains are wired for reductionism, how do we actually access this infinite return without immediately compressing it?
The commentary suggests that we have to radically re-educate our understanding of the word avyaktam, the unmanifest reality.
Okay.
We have to stop trying to view it as an object out there in the world and start understanding it as the very nature of awareness itself.
The text makes a hard distinction here. It says the unmanifest is not a physical object in space and time.
Right. It defines avyaktam as the formless, unmanifest, infinite field of awareness.
Right.
And it asks us to visualize this not as a thing we look at, but as the space within which all looking happens.
Oh, wow.
The space within which all form, thoughts, emotions, and universes arise and dissolve.
It's the shift from being mesmerized by the movie playing on the screen to suddenly noticing the screen itself.
Yes.
Because in our daily lives, we are completely absorbed by the content. The plot of the movie is our career, our relationship drama, our fading youth. We cry when the characters cry. We panic when there's an explosion.
Exactly.
But the unmanifest is the blank, silent screen holding the projection.
And the screen doesn't burn when there is a fire in the movie.
Yeah.
It doesn't get wet when it rains in the movie.
Right.
The text pairs this concept of the unmanifest with avyam anuttamam, the imperishable nature. And this is where the commentary drops its most profound psychological payload.
Okay.
It forces a wedge between our biological persona and pure consciousness.
Which is the ultimate identity crisis, but in the best way possible.
Oh, absolutely.
It challenges the fundamental assumption of who we think we are.
Think about your biological persona right now.
Yeah.
It is a highly complex, fragile construct.
Yeah.
It is made of your accumulated memories, your cultural conditioning, your political preferences, your social status, and your continuously aging cellular structure.
Very true.
Every single component of that biological persona is finite. It was born, it changes daily, and it will eventually perish. If you identify strictly as that biological persona, you are living permanently on the treadmill of decay.
Because I am identifying as the perishable fruit.
Exactly. But a text argues that this biological persona is just another finite form arising and dissolving in the space of awareness.
Okay.
It is the character in the movie. What you actually are, the truest core of your subjective experience, is the pure consciousness that simply witnesses the persona.
The awareness that notices you are stressed.
Yeah.
The awareness that notices your body is aging.
Right. That field of pure awareness does not have a birth date. It doesn't have a status. It doesn't age.
Wow.
The things you are aware of change constantly, but the silent capacity to be aware is imperishable. It is the unmanifest.
So what does this all mean? Let's ground this in a Tuesday afternoon reality.
Okay, let's do it.
I'm stuck in gridlock traffic. I'm late for a high-stakes meeting.
Right, highly stressful.
My heart rate is up. My biological persona is experiencing massive friction because my status, my secondary god, is currently being threatened by my tardiness. How does conceptualizing myself as a field of pure awareness actually change my physiology in that car?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it changes everything because it severs the root of existential fear.
Really?
Yeah. The commentary argues that existential fear is entirely tethered to the anticipation of loss.
Right.
We fear losing our job, our youth, our reputation, our lives. But that fear is predicated on the false identity that you are those things.
Oh.
In that car, when the panic sets in, you are completely identified with the finite character who is late.
Yeah, I'm fully the character.
But if you can execute the cognitive shift the text describes, if you can step back and simply rest as the silent awareness that is watching the anxiety happen, the fear loses its grip.
I'm not the traffic, and I'm not even the panic about the traffic.
Right.
I'm the space in which the panic is temporarily flooring up.
You realize that the pure consciousness witnessing the panic cannot be harmed by a missed meeting. It cannot be fired. It cannot age. The text claims this realization frees the individual from existential fear because you cannot fear the decay of the finite when you recognize yourself as the infinite space holding it.
That's profound.
The anxiety might still biologically occur in the body, but you are no longer drowning in it. You are watching it from the ocean floor.
It's an observer effect.
Exactly.
By shifting identity to the observer, the turbulence of the observed becomes just data.
Just data.
This is a massive philosophical payload to drop into a modern psychological context. I mean, we started with the sheer exhaustion of our dopamine-driven lives, the mirage in the desert where we run ourselves into the ground chasing finite, perishable fruits. We unpacked how our attention aligns with these fluctuating metrics, literally turning our nervous systems into fragile reflections of our bank accounts and social feeds.
And then we explored the cognitive glitch, our biological tendency toward anthropomorphic reductionism, which constantly tempts us to shrink the infinite down into rigid, fragile boxes, accidentally putting us right back on the treadmill of anxiety.
And finally, the ultimate pivot. Escaping the trap, not by changing the external world, but by radically reassigning our identity.
Right.
Moving from the decaying biological persona to the imperishable, unmanifest field of awareness. Realizing we are the screen, not the explosions in the movie.
It's a complete structural overhaul of how we engage with reality.
It really is. Which brings us to the final, most practical application of all this dense theory.
Yeah.
We want to leave our listeners with a specific provocation, a way to test this architecture in their actual lives.
Well, the foundational rule of the unmanifest we discussed is that all thoughts, forms, and urges merely arise and dissolve within the infinite field of awareness.
Right.
They are temporary weather patterns in the sky of consciousness.
And that includes the most immediate, compelling impulses you feel.
Oh, absolutely.
The sudden, twitchy thought of, I need to check my phone, or I wonder how many people viewed my story, or even just the low-level panic of I'm falling behind my peers.
Right.
Those aren't fundamental truths. They are just temporary forms flaring up on the screen.
Which means you don't actually need to declare war on them.
Yeah.
You don't have to suppress the anxiety or white-knuckle your way through the dopamine craving. Fighting it just reinforces your identity as the biological persona under attack.
So here is the practical challenge. Tomorrow morning, when you first wake up, your brain is going to boot up its predictive machinery.
The mirage is going to appear.
The mirage is there. You are going to feel that deep, ingrained gravitational pull to reach over to the nightstand, grab your phone, and plug your attention directly into the transient realm of fluctuating metrics.
And the urge will feel incredibly urgent.
Yes, very urgent. But instead of automatically obeying the urge or even aggressively fighting it, try a different approach.
Just sit still for 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Don't touch the phone.
Yeah.
But don't judge yourself for wanting to. Instead, shift your identity.
Right. Can you spend just 2 minutes noticing the quiet, unmanifest awareness in which the urge is currently screaming?
Try to watch the craving as an object floating in the space of your consciousness.
Notice how the urge peaks, sustains, and eventually dissolves back into the silence all on its own without you having to do a single thing.
You don't have to run toward the mirage.
No. You can just sit quietly in the desert and realize that you are the vast, untouchable space holding the entire scene. Good luck tomorrow morning.